Hello, this is Ashley Coslow.
And this is Marilyn Escalante.
And our presentation is over education during the Great Depression, World War II, and Cold War. So our first stop is in the Great Depression. This had a serious impact on the operation of schools. In many states, especially the hard-pressed South and Southwest, schools were closed or the school year shortened. And by the beginning of 1934, about 20,000 schools nationwide, including 85% of the public schools in Alabama, had closed, thus affecting more than 1 million pupils. So the effects on education during the Great Depression for teachers and students. 10 states were estimated to have schools with school terms of less than 3 months and 22 with terms of less than 6 months. Students were asked to bring their own school supplies and even pay for their tuition. All classes but the basic classes were eliminated, and local school boards across America were unable to pay their teachers and issued them promissory notes agreeing to pay them when revenues were collected. So in the beginning, in 1933, the CCC, or the Civilian Conservation Corps, was created, and later the NYA, National Youth Administration. Both the CCC and the NYA were two of the federal emergency agencies created under President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal to provide work relief for the unemployed. The CCC provided temporary work for more than 2 million people, 18 to 25 years of age, on various conservation projects. The NYA had two parts, a work relief and employment program for the needed, out of the school youth, and a program that provided part-time employment to needy high school and college students to help them continue their education. At the end of the Depression, though, this program was terminated. World War II impact on education.
Our second stop in this presentation is World War II and the impact it had on education. Once this country entered the war, every institution, including the schools, was dominated by the war effort. A large number of the teachers left the classroom for the battlefield, and the women left for higher-paying jobs. Enrollment dropped because of youth choosing to enlist. Financial support that was low because of the Depression was reduced further because of the war effort. Blaman Act of 1941 was created to help schools districts that were flooded by children whose parents were enlisted. Secondary education was still high for military service personnel, mostly prepared military men for service, war industries, and for essential civilian activities.
So towards the end of the war, the GI Bill of Rights passed to provide World War II veterans benefits and help them with education. When the servicemen came back, there was a baby boom, and enrollments increased by 37%. Progressive education started to decline. The Montessori movement was revival to the scene due to a renewed interest in early education. More than one-third of teachers employed in 1940 and 1941 had left teaching. Shortage in teachers resulted in reduced terms, school closures, and fewer courses offered.
Alright, our third stop is the Cold War, aka the post-war era. Curriculum reformed math, science, and the modern foreign languages. There was a lot of rampant poverty in the 1960s. Education was viewed as a major factor in the elimination of poverty. Forbids discrimination in employment for schools. Sputnik, a single event, caused a lot of panic in the education system. The federal government started to increase their involvement in education. If the poor were provided the skills in the education for employment, they would achieve middle-class economic and social status and break the cycle. A lot of resources were put into this idea.
So the Brown decision was the first step in beginning the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement in the schools became the battlegrounds for the fight to attain equal educational opportunity for minorities, females, and the disabled. The fight was the most fierce and protracted about desegregation than in the schools. The carrot and stick mechanism that dramatically increased the pace of the school for desegregation, and the Brown versus Board of Education was a very important case.
Public schools in the Great Depression. During the Great Depression era, North Carolina did not let the hard times get them down. And the state shut down their operations because of the Depression, which was pretty surprising because most of the schools in the country were very, very affected by this. The school district and educators during this time thought of creative ways to save money to keep the schools running, like getting rid of cafeterias and cafeteria workers, bringing their own lunches. But things of that nature were actually pretty hard-pressed because many of the students came to school hungry and left even more hungry. During the year 1931, North Carolina had about 6,700 only contained one room. The teachers had to teach all grade levels in a single classroom. Even less money went to the schools for African American students. Students with mental disabilities often did not attend schools. Teachers in the same area did not always get equal pay. It was based area for white teachers were $45 to $90 per month, where African American teachers got paid $35 to $70 per month.
How Sputnik changed U.S. education. The Harvard Gazette wrote an article about how Sputnik changed education for the United States. The article exclaimed that the simple satellite in space caused a flutter in the United States to push the implementation for more science and engineering practices in the schools curriculum, so we as a country could get back on top with the advancements in technology. Several of the reforms that occurred during the post-Sputnik days are still in use, such as the hands-on laboratory class experience, which is a great way for visual learners to comprehend things. Rebecca Miller states that decades after Sputnik burned in the atmosphere, we're still talking about the science education as a means of security. The article then moves on to talk about how it may be easier passing the legislation for an education reform, but it is much harder to implement science into the classroom due to all the misconceptions the students arrive with when they start to think about science in general. It requires skilled teachers to talk students from the base knowledge to comprehending higher concepts. Franklin D. Roosevelt once said, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." Thank you, and have a great day.